En la parte de arriba o abajo de su dispositivo, seleccione donde diga interpretación de idioma, seleccione español y por último el botón que dice Done, listo o finalizar. Si necesita ayuda para accesar la opción, puede dejar sabernos en el chat para poderles ayudar. También como recordatorio, si ustedes desean hacer una pregunta en español, pueden hacerlo utilizando la opción de Q y A, que es la opción de preguntas y respuestas que está en la parte de abajo de su pantalla. Gracias. Thank you very much.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Altadena Community Meeting. We have a few short presentations, then we will answer questions that have been pre-submitted by community members. Zoom attendees can submit questions in real time using the question and answer function on their screen. Agency representatives are on the Zoom meeting responding live. As the interpreter mentioned, Spanish interpretation and ASL are available on the Zoom platform. Please note that questions submitted to the YouTube live chat will not be answered. For Zoom participants, when you exit this meeting, you'll have the opportunity to take an optional survey and provide your email address. We encourage you to do this if you'd like to receive follow-up communications related to LA County's recovery efforts in Altadena. You can also scan this QR code on the screen to sign up directly for the county's email list related to Altadena recovery efforts. Supervisor Barger, the floor is yours.
I'm sorry, I apologize. We need to start interpretations, not on yet.
All right, we're good to go. Thank you for joining us for our weekly meeting. We have a robust meeting today to answer a lot of the questions I've been hearing in the community. As a reminder, the deadline to submit your right of entry forms, whether you decide to opt in or out, you have to submit that form by March 31st. If you've already submitted yours, be sure to check with your friends and neighbors to be sure that they have as well. To submit your forms and to get details about what either option will mean for you, visit recovery.lacounty.gov. Public Works is here to share more about the ROE forms and will also address safety concerns I've heard related to traffic signals that are still out. Additionally, as I shared at one of our earlier meetings, the McChrystal Group is working on the after action report to examine what happened on January 7th related to firefighting efforts, water availability, and other elements of emergency response. This report is a result of a motion I introduced to the Board of Supervisors at the end of January, and the information gathering is currently underway. The McChrystal Group will be interviewing our fire department, sheriff's department, and the Office of Emergency Management. They will also validate call histories during the fire, interview first responders and incident commanders, and review 911 records. The McChrystal Group will also be hosting community listening sessions to garner residents' input, something I know I've heard time and time again from many residents. They want to be able to share their experience. I will share those dates as soon as they are available. I encourage residents to attend to share your experience so that we can get a full picture of what happened from as many of you as possible. I also want to share that CAL FIRE's local responsibility area hazard maps were released today. These maps, which haven't been updated in over 10 years, classify areas as moderate, high, or very high fire hazard zones. The maps are designed to inform land use decisions, building standards, and wildfire mitigation strategies to ultimately help the county strengthen our fire safety protocols. For Altadena residents, these updated maps provide essential information to guide your rebuilding efforts. Chief Nick DeValle is here with us to share more about what it means for our county and the Altadena community. I encourage everyone, especially those in high hazard areas, to review these maps and stay informed. With that, let's get our meeting started.
Thank you, Supervisor Barger. And our first presenter is Chief DeValle. Chief DeValle, go ahead.
You're on mute, Chief.
Show on me.
Of all times to do that. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Diwali. I'm with the LA County Fire Department, and I want to give some insights and some updates on the fire hazard severity zone maps that the supervisor commented on. Those maps were made public today. The fire department hasn't seen them before today either, so we're all seeing these pretty much at the same time. The last time these maps were updated was over 10 years ago, so it's been a while. So these maps have a lot of significance in that in the local responsibility area, which includes Altadena. That area in the previous maps had only identified the very high fire hazard severity zone, which is the most hazardous of the three zones. Also mentioned were the high hazard and the moderate hazard. So now these current maps show all three. And we'll show the map up in a little bit, and we'll be able to scroll through the old map to the new map so we can see how the changes have been brought up to date. These maps are created by CAL FIRE, which is the state fire department, and they have the statutory responsibility to develop these maps. These maps take a very long time to create, and there's a collaborative effort between the National Weather Service, some of the leading universities in California, along with basic data such as slope and winds, aspect, and the daily fire hazard severity ratings that are generated throughout the state. These maps represent the hazard that many of us live in, not the risk. The risk is more the insurance company's responsibilities to deal with that aspect of this. These are hazard maps generated by the state fire department, and these are being given out to us today. If we could show that map right now, then we can walk everybody that's watching through how the maps look. So this is the current configuration of the very high fire hazard severity zone in the local responsibility area. And it's depicted here in the red hash marks. So those were the maps that were generated from 2007. The maps that were released today on this map, and the link to this map so everybody can actually go and see their exact address to see if they are in one of the zones. So there's a slide component, and if we could slide that, the slider so that we can move it from the 2007 maps to the the current maps. So as the slider goes across, you can see it change to the much brighter red, and then adjacent to the bright red, you see the dull orange, and inside of that, you see the yellow. So the red is very high, the orange is the high, and the yellow is the moderate hazard zones. So you can see that as you slide it back and forth, you can see the difference between the zones. They have increased a little bit, especially along our border with the National Forest. So there is a change. So at the top of this is a search bar. And if you type in your address, it will go right into your address and show exactly whether you're in the zone or not in the zone. And if you are in the zone, it will depict exactly which zone that you're in. So being in the very high fire hazard severity zone, that is the highest hazard. And the components, I think a lot of us have heard us talk about Chapter 7A of the Building and Fire Code. Those are home hardening resiliency efforts that need to be made to make the house more resilient and hopefully make it through a fire. And that includes some basics like what's the roof made out of, the walls made out of, boxing in your eaves, and a few other items that need to be included in that rebuild process. So we're just starting to analyze these maps as we've only seen them today. So we'll have more information about the maps as we move forward. But I think that's a pretty good overview of where we are right now. So that would end my presentation.
Thank you, Chief Diwali. And our next speaker is Amiko Thompson with Public Works.
Good afternoon, everybody. First, I would like to reiterate what Supervisor Barger had said earlier. Property owners are strongly encouraged to submit their ROE form or opt out by March 31st. So this is already a week away from today. And this is also really to protect your eligibility. So please do submit your ROE form or opt-out form. And as a reminder, there's several ways that the ROEs can be submitted. And I will put this in the chat also. You can do it online at recovery.lacounty.gov. You can also do it email to roe@dpw.lacounty.gov, or you can take it to one of the disaster recovery centers, or if you prefer to mail it in, you can send it to Public Works at 900 South Fremont Avenue, Alhambra, and this information will go in the chat. And then secondly, I just wanted to give you an update on the progress for processing ROEs. We've made very good progress as of recent, and to date, nearly 9,200 ROEs have been received, and over 6,600 ROEs have been transmitted to the Army Corps. And on a related note, please note that additional guidance on the opt-out process has been posted on the recovery.lacounty.gov website. And here you'll find detailed step-by-step instructions on how to apply for a fire debris removal permit through the county's EPIC LA system for the opt-out option. And with that, I'll now hand it over to Julian Garcia, also from Public Works, for an update.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. Again, my name is Julian Garcia with our Traffic Safety and Mobility Division to provide a quick update on the traffic signals in the Altadena community. As you have noticed, after the fire, a number of signals as they were being restored to power were put in flashing red mode to help kind of control traffic a bit, to address some new drivers coming in, address a variety of work that was ongoing, just to keep traffic kind of moving a little bit slowly and carefully through the community. As traffic has been restored and patterns have been going back to normal, we have been moving those back to normal operations. There have been some challenges still, and some of them regarding some equipment that had issues that had to be resolved, and some ongoing efforts at different intersections from either utility companies or other types of repairs that were impacting that process. But as of right now, we have only 2 signals that remain on flashing, and we have 2 signals that are still out because of lack of power. So we're working with Edison to address those concerns for the signals that are out of power, and the signals that are still remaining on flashing. We expect to have those operational, fully automatically operational within the next week or 2. Those locations, just to be able to provide a little more context, the signal at Altadena Drive and Marengo Avenue is still without power. So we're working to help restore power to that signal to bring it back to operations. The signal at Lake Avenue and Mariposa Street is also without power, and we're working to expedite putting power back on those signals. The signal at Lake Avenue and Mendocino Street is still in flashing red. There is currently some work being done there. Communications contractor is working, has heavy equipment in that area that can sometimes block the signal head. So we want to make sure we keep that in red for the next week. And then once they're completed, that will be going back to normal as well. And then the signal at Lake Avenue and Calavera Street has some visual obstructions that we're working to move out of the way so we can put the signal back in full operations. And if there are any other signals or anything that you see that is not operational or in flashing red, please feel free to notify us either via the Works app or through emails. I will provide information that sometimes when there's a power surge, a signal will go out. And when it comes back into power, it'll be flashing red for a little while until our inspectors can go out there and make sure that everything is working properly, and then it gets reset back to normal operations.
Thank you to both our presenters from Public Works. Just before we move on to our next presenter, a reminder that Zoom attendees can submit questions in real time using the question and answer function on your screen, not the chat function. Agency representatives are on the Zoom meeting responding live. Please note that if you are tuning in via YouTube, that questions submitted to the YouTube live chat will not be answered. Please use the QR code on your screen or the link posted or pinned at the top of your comments to join us via Zoom and submit your questions using the question and answer portion. We'll leave the slide up for just another minute as we transition over to our next speaker, Colonel Abichal with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to take a minute and give you some updates on where we stand on the cleanup effort, and then talk about a couple initiatives or activities that'll be starting in the upcoming weeks. So first of all, right now we have 89 crews conducting debris removal. This time, about 2 weeks ago, we had about half of those debris removal crews. So again, we are continuing to grow. We expect to plateau between 100 and 120 crews, and we should hit that over the next couple weeks. In terms of completed properties, where we've actually sent the right of entry back to the county, we are around 420. But in terms of substantially cleared, so this is cleared of fire ash debris, we're at almost 1,000 properties. So a lot of effort is going forward, and we're seeing a lot of progress on the ground. So 2 changes that are coming up in the near future. The first one is for those that opt out of the program, we are going to remove the Corps of Engineers. This is the Phase 2 Corps of Engineers signs from those properties. This is just to avoid any confusion from those property owners. Again, the Phase 1 signs, which is the household hazardous materials, those will remain. It's just the metal Corps of Engineers signs for those that opted out. Those will start being removed this week. The other update, the second update here is the use of soil tackifier. So soil tackifier is going to be applied to properties that have opted into the program, so those that we have a right of entry for. And the reason for it is it's given the current dry and windy conditions, soil tackifier will help to keep that fire ash debris that from blowing into the public. So soil tackifier is a non-toxic, biodegradable, and non-hazardous soil stabilizer. It will dry clear, and it is odorless. It will not leach into groundwater. This is something that the EPA used as part of the Maui wildfires in 2023. And again, the measure is being implemented to safeguard both the community and workers from exposure from windblown ash, which can be hazardous. The soil tackifier will bind to the surface and will reduce those contaminants from becoming airborne. Again, this will only happen on properties that we have a right of entry on and that we have not yet cleared. And this will happen over the next couple weeks. That concludes my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Abichal. And lastly, we have a short update from the San Gabriel Mosquito and Vector Control District. Jason, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Farnett. I'm the district manager for San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District. I also want to thank Supervisor Barger and her team for the opportunity to update you today. So SGV Mosquito has been proactively identifying and addressing new mosquito breeding habitats that have emerged as a result of the fire. We have deployed enhanced mosquito surveillance in and around the burn area, monitoring mosquito populations and preparing to test samples for mosquito-borne diseases. Our team has identified over 1,200 damaged swimming pools within the burn area, which will be a primary focus of our response. We started performing mosquito control treatments in the swimming pools this week, and we will continue to have regular inspection and treatment crews in the area in the coming weeks and for as long as the need persists. We'll prioritize control efforts based on proximity to adjacent communities and requests submitted by property owners. Our support may include temporary mosquito control treatments or the use of mosquito fish, which provide reliable long-term mosquito control in non-functional swimming pools. And I think we have a slide with a QR code. If that's available, if we could put that up. Yeah, so while property owners are ultimately responsible for preventing mosquitoes from growing on their property, we recognize the unique challenges this disaster has created. Standing water that fosters mosquito breeding is a violation of the Public Health and Safety Code, but we understand that many property owners currently have limited options for compliance. And so our goal is to provide as much support as we can during this transitional period. So we encourage property owners to start thinking about the long-term solutions of their non-functional swimming pools. But in the meantime, we're here to assist with temporary mosquito control options. And so if you need assistance, if you have a swimming pool on your property and you haven't done so already, please visit our website at eatonareamosquitocontrol.org or follow the QR code on the screen to request mosquito control services. And we encourage you to enroll in our tech support program so that we can communicate about the burn area swimming pools and what options are available, and also so that you can communicate with us as residents once the swimming pool is either emptied or returned back to a functional state. Thank you all very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you, and we're going to transition now to the question and answer portion of our evening. The following questions were submitted ahead of tonight's community meeting, and we'll answer as many of them as we can in the allotted time. Zoom participants who can also submit questions in real time using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So for those of you who are on YouTube and would like to submit a question, we encourage you to hop onto the Zoom meeting and use the Q&A function. We're going to leave the slide with the QR code up for just a bit so that you can join us via Zoom. Our first question is for our partners at FEMA. My house is standing, but in the burn zone. The deadline for FEMA assistance is March 31st, and I will not receive confirmation from my insurance company on what they will pay to get my home back by then. Does this mean that I will lose out on all FEMA assistance?
Yes, this is Manny Portela to answer the question. Once you're registered with FEMA, you're already in the system. So it doesn't matter if the deadline is passed, you're already in the system. So you can continue to check what is your situation on your case, and later on, bring in your insurance settlement letter. All the insurance information, that means that you will have to bring to your case the amount that you receive, or if you got denied by your insurance. So again, once you are in the register with FEMA, you continue to be inside the system, and you will have to bring in right away once you receive your insurance settlement to your case. You can bring in your insurance information, your settlement, to the Disaster Recovery Center. You can post it you can access the disasterassistance.gov website to bring in your insurance settlement to your case. If you have we recommend, if you have a register past 1 month with FEMA, to follow your case. Be proactive. The survivor has to be proactive to follow their case and follow to see what is your situation with your case. If you haven't heard from FEMA, we encourage the survivors to follow what is their case. And remember that the deadline that will be on March 31st is for new registrations. But once you are in the register, you continue to address your case. So you continue to be in register, and you can bring in all your paperwork that is needed to support your case. And that's it.
Thank you. Moving on to our next question. It's a joint question for both the Department of Insurance reps that are on and our Consumer and Business Affairs. The question is, my insurance referred a cleaning company to me. I hired them, but had several communications issues like they had shown up unannounced, were not providing a quote or a scope of work. I have not paid the final installment and they're threatening to put a lien on my property. I'm waiting to hear back from my insurance company. In the meantime, is there a county resource or someone I can report this company to? I've already filed a case with DCBA, but I'm very concerned about the potential lien.
So I can start off my name's Rob. I'm from the Department of Insurance. From the insurance perspective, if that company was contracted by, or it was referred to by your insurance company and that cleaning was covered under your insurance policy, then to tell you the truth, they should be dealing directly with your insurance company for payment. But in the case that it wasn't covered and, if it wasn't covered by your insurance policy and they just referred that company, and you might have chosen to go with them, on the Department of Insurance's end, you can file a complaint with us as far as if your insurance company acted in bad faith, or you have having trouble get a response from them, or any other issue, you can file a complaint with us at the California Department of Insurance. But as far as the cleaning company goes, I think the DCBA might be a better answer for that.
Hey, Rob, thank you for that information. That's very helpful. Yeah, my name is Scott Treader. I'm a program manager in the Housing and Tenant Protections Bureau with DCBA, the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, LA County. And we can also provide a perspective on that question. First of all, I just want to thank Supervisor Barger for having me and the opportunity to share some of the resources our department has available. So regarding this insurance question and cleaning company question, we suggest the following. In addition to what Rob provided as far as following up with the California Department of Insurance goes, and we are encouraged that the person did submit a complaint already to our department, but the first step has already been taken, which is filing a complaint with our department. But to further provide other resources, if this cleaning company holds a contractor's license in California, the constituent may be able to file a complaint with a contractor state license board, or the CSLB. This is a state agency that oversees contractors. We did already talk about following up at the Department of Insurance. The other issue is that, with the lien, there is potential for a defense against a mechanic's lien, which is typically what is being used or being threatened to be used here. So if the company does try and file a lien, there are some very strict procedures under California law that have to be followed. I won't go into great detail about it, but just making folks aware that there are steps that have to be followed if someone is going to place a mechanic's lien on your property. The constituent can also file what's called a release of lien if the cleaning company did fail to follow proper procedure, or the constituent could possibly get a bond, what's called a bond around the lien. I would suggest if this issue escalates or it can't be resolved one-on-one or with these other agencies that I mentioned, the constituent may need to consult with an attorney. We do have the LA County Bar Association's lawyer referral service, which we can have folks log into the website at smartlaw.org, or there's a phone number for the California Bar Association's lawyer referral service. It's 213-243-1525. I wanted to mention that DCBA also offers mediation services. So if there's potential that both of these parties could possibly come to an agreement, they could go ahead and submit for mediation, and we could get that set up to see if we can find some resolution through that program. The next steps that we would suggest in this situation is for the constituent to go ahead and write that letter to their insurance company wait to get that confirmation from their insurance company, I should say. If the filing of the lien was done without proper process, that may constitute fraud. With all those suggestions, that is how we would propose the constituent handle the situation that they're dealing with.
Thank you both for your response. Our next question is for our representatives from Public Works and the Army Corps. We live in a residential area and have noticed that there are various trucks hauling materials from the burned areas uncovered using Los Robles Avenue in Pasadena, and the ones that are covered are also leaking waste. What can be done to avoid this from occurring?
So from the Army Corps side, I can answer this. So our trucks, they have a placard on the side of it. So again, if you see a placard or you give us a license plate, if you see this happening, we can track that down and we can take swift action against our contractor who's not abiding by the proper rules for how their loads are supposed to be contained. Again, there's a placard on the side of it that says ECC on it and has a blue circle. If you were able to take a picture of that placard or the license plate, we can track that down. And then I'll put it in the chat, but there's an email address where you could send all of those issues and concerns. And again, we'll take swift action with our contractor. Thanks.
Thank you. And did anyone from Public Works want to add to that?
Similar to the Army Corps, if you are aware of any vehicles that are leaking or not properly covered or other issues, then please do let Public Works know. Sometimes it's difficult to distinguish between are there Army Corps contractors or Public Works contractors. So we would be happy to work with Army Corps to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is also for Army Corps and Public Works. As we live in an area where 24 homes burned and we are interested in getting underground rather than overhead wires, excuse me, this question is likely better suited for Dave Ford from SoCal Edison. Installed for electrical power and other utilities, how can we notify our electricity company and the county that we would like for these wires to go underground?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Again, it's a pleasure to be part of this panel of discussions and community meetings that Supervisor Barger has put on over the last several weeks. If a customer is interested in gathering more information about undergrounding, we are at the stages right now where our design and planning to rebuild the system has not been totally completed yet. And once that is completed, we're reviewing undergrounding where feasible opportunities exist within Altadena. And of course, most of the customers that their houses were not destroyed and we're able to energize those, we have made efforts to do that early on in the last several weeks. So we're looking and exploring options where it's most feasible to do undergrounding. At the same time, looking at plans to improve reliability and strengthening the grid. And that is using various applications of technology, and one that pretty much folks have heard us talk about is covered conductor. There'll be more to come in the next couple of weeks as we're reviewing these options and how we can be engaged into the rebuild and restoration process.
And then I wanted to add, thank you, Dave, for that. I have been talking to Edison as well about the opportunity because we're going to have to redo infrastructure. And we are working closely with Edison to see how we can make that a reality. That I hear time and time again from residents up there that they want to underground. And so I promise you this, we are in conversations. It's going to be a state CPUC is going to have to sign off on it. But we are advocating on behalf of the residents of Altadena.
Thank you, Dave and Supervisor Barger. A reminder to our panelists to please make sure that you are monitoring the question and answer forum and answering questions that apply to your agency. Supervisor Barger, the next question is for you. While the permitting office allows plus or minus a 10% or up to 200 square foot like for like, the assessor seems to interpret their substantial equivalence rule to no more than 100% of the pre-fire size. Anything over would be assessed at new rates. Can you please lobby for the assessor to also extend the existing tax base to the same like-for-like standard as the permit office applies?
Yes, and understand this, it's not the assessor that makes that determination, it's a state. And I'm very grateful to Assemblyman Harabadian as well as Senator Perez, who have bills pending that are going to address some of the issues that we're finding up in Altadena and actually the Palisades. And so we are advocating for that. And something that the assessor told us at one of our meetings a couple of weeks ago was not only does the assessment kick in there, but if there are requirements such as solar and all, those become part of what is assessed on your property. So we are looking to get that waived, recognizing that we are mandating that it be built to a certain standard. And we want to make sure that we make it as affordable and the cost is not shifted to the survivors of this fire. So absolutely going to be advocating for that, but it's not up to the assessor to make that determination. It's got to be through the state who oversees all of these laws pertaining to property taxes.
And if I may add, Supervisor Barger, we have been working with state legislature on the 110% like for like or something similar that assessors can rely on. So we are working currently with the state legislature on that piece.
Scott, thank you. I didn't know you were on. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is something that we heard loud and clear. Both the assessor and I have talked, and we are leaning hard in. The governor understands. So we have good partners, I hope, up at the state that will help us pass the finish line on this. So thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Our next question is for our representatives at the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. My mortgage company wants me to send them my entire check from the insurance company to hold in escrow for the contractor. I'm planning on using my check to hire an architect to draw plans before I hire a contractor. During last week's meeting, it was mentioned that this is not an insurance issue, and it was suggested that we talk to our mortgage company. Is there any specific information from someone at DCBA on how to handle a situation like this?
Hi, so I can take this question. So mortgage companies demanding an insurance check is not uncommon after property damage. Most mortgage agreements allow the lender to hold those insurance funds in escrow in order to ensure that that property is repaired and that the collateral is protected for the lender. But that doesn't mean that the owner loses all control of these funds. Generally, the mortgage companies release the insurance funds in phases. First phase for plans and permitting, second phase for contractor deposits, and lastly, progress payments would be the final payment. So mortgage companies usually require homeowners to submit estimates, contracts themselves, and possibly progress inspections before releasing portions of the funds. So what DCBA recommends as next steps for this mortgage holder is to go ahead and call their mortgage company and ask that the written guidelines for insurance disbursements be provided to them so that the mortgage holder knows exactly what the procedures are that the mortgage company is following relating to the insurance proceeds. We would suggest the constituent also let the mortgage company know that the funds are needed for architecture and the planning process prior to the other phases of the work. This may allow for a partial release of the funds for what's called soft costs, particularly if the mortgage holder can provide any documentation that would support their case or their request. Some owners have had success getting their mortgage servicer to agree to release funds for architectural plans upon submitting a letter of intent and an invoice from the architect. So potentially, again, the homeowner can press the mortgage company to release funds for their architectural phase of their rebuilding.
Thank you, Scott. And we have one more question for you. Can the county implement renter-tenant protections that allow renters to break leases? There are many renters who are concerned with returning to buildings and housing options in areas that have not yet been remedied. Renters should have the same flexibility to make the housing decisions as single-family residential property owners who are deciding whether to rebuild, and if so, when they choose to rebuild.
Right, and that's a good question. We're certainly getting a lot of questions from property owners who have rental properties. We're hearing from the landlords. We're hearing from tenants that were residents in these properties. Here's how we can break this down. So there are tenant protections in place currently. California state law, California Civil Code 1942, specifically applies to the habitability of a rental unit. If a rental unit is deemed uninhabitable and not repaired within a reasonable time, the tenant can potentially terminate that lease without implications. Uninhabitable includes conditions that substantially endanger the health or the safety of the occupants, including toxic contamination or environmental hazards. Under California State Civil Code, just lost my place. Under California Civil Code 1933, Section 4, regarding the destruction of a premises. A lease is terminated when the premises are fully destroyed or rendered unfit for occupancy through no fault of the tenant or the landlord. Rendered unfit can include severe contamination or unsafe conditions following a disaster. What constitutes a unit as uninhabitable or unsafe? These questions are a little bit tricky, but we have to look to the current law and apply it. So again, going back to California Civil Code 1941.1 and also 1942.4, they provide information, under the habitability laws, they cover serious health hazards, environmental contamination, particularly relating to lead, mold, or toxic chemicals, and also dangerous conditions that exist as a result from the disaster. So what about untested soil, unremediated ash, and potential wildfire toxins in the home or on the property grounds? Well, we did already have a little bit of a discussion about some of the treatments for the properties and how to neutralize the toxins, but there could be a potential for habitability issues, but a tenant may need to get environmental testing done by an IICRC certified company or another environmental health professional. Or if a public agency such as Department of Public Health or Building and Safety issue a declaration or a report, those could help make the case for the tenant that the place is not habitable based on the current conditions. Can landlords terminate leases if, again, the property is fully destroyed or requires extensive repair? That's going to take a long time to fix. That's going to make the unit uninhabitable. Most likely, it's going to be grounds to automatically terminate the lease and release all parties from their liabilities and obligations. However, if the landlord intends to repair or rebuild, they cannot just evict tenants without following relocation laws if covered under local rent control. And as we all should know, unincorporated Altadena or Eaton is considered unincorporated LA County and does fall under the county's rent control jurisdiction. Untested soil and gray areas. Untested soil or potential contamination without verification is not automatically considered uninhabitable. The burden of proof would generally fall on either county inspectors who would find the property unsafe, or again, environmental testing that shows results indicating that toxin levels are beyond safe thresholds for tenants to live there. So in summary, tenants already have a right to terminate their leases if the property is proven unsafe or uninhabitable. Landlords can terminate if destruction or repairs make the property unfit for the short term, but the landlords do need to follow local rent control laws, and potentially they may have to pay out tenants, but it's really a case-by-case basis. So we really have to be careful how we apply some of these rules. Untested conditions are not enough. There needs to be evidence or official determination, as I discussed previously. The tenant did mention they had a child that had health issues, and they were worried about returning to the unit with things not being quite 100% back to normal. If a tenant gets a note from a doctor and provides it to the landlord saying, hey, my child has specific allergies and is particularly susceptible to these conditions, that may be grounds that the tenant could terminate that lease if the landlord's not willing to remediate the conditions. Real quick, I don't want to take up too much time, but I did want to mention price gouging protections that are in place. Currently, it's illegal to raise prices by more than 10% during a locally declared emergency, which is what we have currently with this fire and the Palisades fire as well. This is in effect until July 2025, unless it gets further extended out by the state government. To date, DCBA has received over 1,100 complaints on price gouging, with 90% of those cases relating to rent increases. So we have seen a very huge uptick in complaints for our investigations unit. We've also seen a range of complaints relating to services like construction, which we talked about a little bit earlier, cleaning companies, retail sales and purchases, and real estate documents and loans. Just to reiterate about the California price gouging law, fines can result up to $50,000 or 1 year in jail or both. DCBA is the central reporting and investigative agency for price gouging in LA County. So if you suspect price gouging, get a hold of us and use our price gouging tool that's on our website so that you can report it and so we can take a look at it. And one of the great things we have at our disposal, one of the tools is that we have subpoena authority, which allows our department to obtain documentation, including pricing histories on rental properties, and we can help determine if illegal price increases have in fact taken place in violation of the price gouging laws. Real quick, before I wrap up, I just want to mention that we also do have currently in place emergency eviction protections for tenants. Tenants who were financially affected by the fires can certify to their landlord in writing within 7 days of the rent being due that they have been financially impacted by the fires. This could be a result.
Thank you, Scott. Can you please use the chat function to provide a website where folks that are on Zoom can access this information? And then we're going to head over to our next question for regional planning.
Sure, will do. Thank you very much for your time.
Mitch, our next question is For you, my property is long and narrow, with a portion at the back being the widest. Previously, my house sat at the narrowmost point. In considering future setback goals and requirements, it makes the most sense to have the ADU in front and the primary home in the back. However, I'm told that ADUs have to be behind the home. Is there any possibility the county could relax some of these ADU rules or issue exemptions in the interest of optimal setbacks for safety reasons?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So we do already have some flexibility in state law as well as the governor's executive orders and also in the county code and county policy. So an accessory dwelling unit does not necessarily need to be behind the home. It could be attached to the home, and I think it could be in front of the home in certain circumstances. So what I would like to do is get more information from you, including the address of your property, and I'll work with our department's disaster recovery team to do some research and let you know what options you have. And if having an accessory dwelling unit in the front of your house is not an option, and it might be possible for us to refine county policy to make that happen, not just for you, but for some of your neighbors as well, I'd be happy to look into that. So I'll go ahead and add my email address to the chat, and I would encourage you to send me an email and I'll follow up with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a quick question for public health. My insurance company is demanding I return to my toxic house and is not acting fairly or in good faith. Does public health have a statement that advises insurance company adjusters that we cannot return to live in our homes while our properties are blanketed in toxic debris?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. This is Dr. Mahajan for Public Health. Understand your concerns and they're legitimate. You know, we in Public Health put out an advisory about a month ago now, maybe a little longer ago, indicating that anyone within 250 yards of fire debris may, depending on their exposure to the fire debris, may be at risk for some health outcomes that are not good. And, you know, it depends on the wind and whether you're actually being exposed to it. But when you're within 250 yards, you're pretty close to it and could be exposed, and you could have a higher risk. The insurance commissioner, and I believe insurance commission is on the call here, released a couple of statements and bulletins to insurance companies to indicate that they've noted the public health advisory about the dangers of fire debris. And they have urged insurers to maintain the additional living expenses coverage. And they've also urged insurance companies to ensure that they're doing their due diligence on cleaning up on structures that are still standing. And so I'm going to put in the chat the links to the insurance commissioner's statements, and you know, maybe the insurance commissioner representative wants to say a word or two.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mahajan. So yeah, the insurance commissioner did put out a couple of bulletins and notices to insurance carriers on those health concerns. Now, you know, they are requests to the insurance carriers. They're not required to do that, unfortunately, but we know a lot of insurance carriers have complied with the commissioner's request with those health concerns, clean up with the smoke damage and things like that. But, you know, as always, if you are wondering if your insurance company is not treating you fairly or not following along with some of the guidelines that the commissioner has put out, give us a call at our 800 number at 1-800-927-4357. And we can take a look at your insurance policy, kind of work with you to see what's covered and not covered, and then also file a complaint on your insurance carrier if they are acting in bad faith.
Thank you, and we have time for one more question pulling from our Q&A function. This question is for Mitch with Regional Planning. Regarding building standards that allow a homeowner to rebuild 10% or 200 square feet, whichever is greater, when will this information be published?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our director signed an interpretation memo earlier today, and it's going to be posted on our website. It's not there quite yet, but I would expect it to be up later today or tomorrow. So I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat where you can find that memo. And I've already put my email address in the chat. So if you can't find it, you're welcome to email me and I can send it to you directly.
Thank you. And that's all the time we have for questions today. Supervisor Barger, if you have any closing remarks.
Yeah, first of all, thank you all for once again joining on this phone call. I know there are a lot of questions that are still unanswered, and we are going to go through the chat and make sure that we get answers on our website. And if there's something that you think of or that we didn't completely answer, please follow up with us. I want to make sure that we're as transparent and we communicate all the information that we have moving forward. So I really appreciate y'all taking the time to be here. I thank our team, both our federal partners, our state partners, and of course our county family for being a part of this today. So with that, I look forward to seeing you next Monday at 4 o'clock.